This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson.
Yes, welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. I am your host, Harry Wilkinson. And welcome to the show where we take a look at the days and weeks events, happenings in the world of politics, international news, health, well-being, and we look at it all from a spiritual perspective. We take a step back. We take a look around. And we look at these stories that we're telling ourselves, these happenings in the world that we are creating. And we look at what they may be offering us. We look at how we may go within these things and reconnect, remember who and what we really are. And so, that is the basis that I use on this show. The idea that we are, at a metaphysical level, I guess, if you want to use that sort of terminology, that we do create these stories, that the essence of us and who and what we really are is one. I often use the term divine mind, but you can think of it as a connectedness or a kind of thing where we are all made of the same stuff, and so we all essentially the same. I've heard that expressed. And many people who have a more scientific bend or lean, kind of like that terminology, but we're all talking about the same thing, which is that essence of oneness, and that from this essence that we create these situations that we see in the world around us. However, we don't recognize that we've created them. We recognize or we look at them as though they were happening to us or just happening without us, and that adds to the actual engagement in the game that we're playing, the game of being human. Being human is to be two, as I mentioned, previously. To be two means that there's that higher level that I was just talking about, the metaphysical level of existence that we have, and then we have the mundane level, I guess is a good word for it, material level, what have you, that part of us that goes through and seems unaware of that higher part of us, but struggles and worries and deals with crises, all of those things. That's what the human game is all about, the human existence is all about, and remembering who and what we are is a key part of it that has varying levels of relevance for every individual at every different point of their life. So my mission in doing this show is to help me remind myself, and in doing so I'm hopeful that it may help others to do so as well. So enough of that, enough of the show intro. I always like to just make that a little bit clearer for people who sometimes tune in, and I think some people do turn in thinking that this is a religious show, and it's just not. We do talk about religion, and we will today, as a matter of fact, but if we have time. But we don't operate from a set of particular organized religious beliefs. So, anyway, on today's show, we're going to talk about resolutions. Resolutions in the positive sense, resolutions in the negative sense, and resolutions in the spiritual sense. We're going to talk about what that word resolve means. And we're going to talk about the ongoing conflict, the ongoing situation that's been unfolding in Paris, which is, for a lot of people, quite alarming, but there's some very amazing things that are happening as well. Right now in Paris, there is a unity rally with crowds, including 40 world leaders. And this is all due to the attacks that happened, beginning 3 days ago. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what that means in the context of our evolution, or what we've been going through since the year of 2012. Now, those of you who have listened to the show before know that I've talked about something that astrologers have brought to my attention and the attention of many other people, that throughout the years 2012 and 2015, through 2015, there's a astrological alignment between two planets, the planet Uranus and the planet Pluto. They're at right angles to each other, and they continue to meet up at varying points during this period of 2012 through 2015. And we just had a period where they have that right angle has intensified. I believe it's the sixth such incident, and we have two more. They will all end in March of 2015. I think that's the last of the tense angles between these two planets. So what I've been talking about since that time is that astrological alignment, and you may or may not believe in astrology. I find it helpful. I find it does lend a certain amount of wisdom and a certain amount of perspective on things. But in any case, what the right angle of these two planets has symbolized is a time of turmoil, a time of social protest, a time of revolution and change, countered by a pullback. And as this trial and tribulation period goes through, we are seeing the birth of what will solidify into some very positive changes. But what we're often seeing doesn't look quite so positive sometimes. And I've talked about this in relation to the Arab Spring. I've talked about it in relation to the Ukraine and Russian situation. And you notice all of these things have yet to be resolved. They've been going on all through this period, and that's why I say this is this period of change, in all different areas. In this country, I have often said that it seems to be most prominently displaying itself in the increased awareness of income inequality in this country, of the 99 percenters and so forth, and that disparity that exists, in which there's this concentration of a great deal of money and power among a small number of people. And so that's where the Uranus-Pluto situation seems to show up most profoundly, but also in more recently, the conflicts that have been going on in Ferguson, with and the continued debate, which is happening nationally, about African Americans and the police and their feeling or their feeling of being singled out by police, of being in essence murdered, where we've had these string of incidences where unarmed black men have been gunned down by police or killed by police through overpowering methods. That also speaks to this Uranus-Pluto situation. But most recently, these attacks in France really illustrate this. And I thought it'd be important for me to go ahead and kind of make it a little more clear about what Uranus stands for and what Pluto stands for and how they work into this. So, well, let's start with the Charlie Hebdo situation. As you probably know, I'm sure you haven't been able to get away from it, but you may not know all of the details. I'm not going to go into the, fine details of it. You can see that on any of the networks or cable news stations, but basically, two men who since has been discovered that have connections to, they believe it's the Islamic State or ISIL terrorist organization, broke into the offices of Charlie Hebdo, which is a satirical magazine in France that specializes in satire of political and religious figures. And basically they gunned down 11 people in that office. Basically everybody who worked for the magazine. Well, not everybody, but many people who worked for the magazine. And then the siege continued as these two men escaped and hid out a little bit north of Paris. In the meantime, another attack was going on in a Jewish grocery store in the south of France. Two more gun people. One was someone named Amidi Koulibaly, and the other a young lady. I've forgotten her name. I'm not sure. I'll have to find that later. But anyway, those two are actually, it looks like they are still at large. But Charlie Hebdo had been a magazine and an organization that had been targeted several times. They've been attacked several times by Islamic terrorists who didn't like the idea that they made fun of the Prophet Muhammad. And what Charlie Hebdo continued to do was to continue to even increase their satire of Muhammad and cartoons of Muhammad and all of those things. There's been some criticism of that in the wake of all of this, because it really does seem like they were deliberately kind of poking the bear, if you will. And there's a debate, and I think it's a worthy debate. It's something you can talk about. How helpful is that? How helpful is it, to use your free speech, but to kind of use it in a reckless way? And that's a debate we always have about free speech. We have free speech, but is it, how do we use it? So, in any case, this was a situation that had been brewing for quite some time. As I said, they'd been attacked several times. But they would continue even doing even harder edged satire. So the Islamic State had them on their radar for sure. And then the grocery store attack, I think, was something coordinated, possibly to, I don't know, keep police and officials off guard. I'm not exactly sure why that happened, but they were all linked together because they all knew each other and they all communicated, so it was all part of a planned attack. Where all told 17 people have been killed. But today, the interesting thing is that there is this huge rally, unity rally. It's bringing together of people and leaders from around the world. And it's quite a scene. If you get a chance to turn on the TV and take a look, you'll see throngs of people in Paris holding hands together, demonstrating solidarity. I always say when we have these incidences that draw the attention of people from around the world, that we create these incidences to remember our unity, to bring ourselves, into a greater understanding of who and what we are. And these people who have died are spirits who have lent themselves to this extraordinary opportunity to reaffirm our connection. And for that, we're sort of metaphysical heroes. Now, understand what I'm saying there. I'm not saying that they made a deliberate decision on the, mundane level to do this, but as I said, as human beings, we operate on this other higher level, and it's there where decisions like this are made and creations like this are made. So it's very interesting to see and very heartening to see this coming together of people to stand against an attack of this nature. But anyway, to get back to our Uranus-Pluto demonstration here. So Uranus is a planet of freedom, revolution, change, and Pluto is the planet of, at its highest level, it's a planet of transformation. It's also considered to be the planet of dark, deeply held secrets. It can also be a planet of death and rebirth. It tends to be a dark planet in many aspects. So, if you want just a snapshot kind of illustration, Charlie Hebdo, as a magazine devoted to its free speech and its freedom to express its point of view, coincides with the Uranus impulse, and Pluto coincides with the Islamic State, this dark power, as you will, this resistance, this pullback. In the other examples that I mentioned, the Ferguson situation, Uranus is represented by the African Americans in their march for understanding of their situation with the police who were supposed to protect them, and instead often seem to be doing exactly the opposite. And of course, the police, their organization, their solidarity, their power, their overabundance of power, and in whatever situations there that it's abused, that is Pluto. That's the Pluto energy there. So there's that. And the other example I used was, in this country, the 99 percenters, the income disparity. Well, Uranus is the 99% of people who are, protesting the vast amounts of money and the smaller and smaller elite who control it. And of course, the elite, very wealthy, and corporations and so forth, they would be the Pluto energy, again, because they have this tremendous power, sometimes darkly used, sometimes used in secret, but it's all about controlling. So you can see how those energies are playing out in all of these different ways. And again, you may or may not accept the validity of astrology, but it's kind of interesting for me to think of it that way and to look at it in those terms. You don't have to use the planets to do that. You can just think of them as energies in the world. But for me, it's a little bit more helpful to have that kind of guidepost. All right, so going to move on and talk about top 4 spiritual resolutions you might wish to make for 2015. We talked a little bit about it last time. I didn't get a chance to get more into it, so I want to do that now. So the first in this article by Mr. Bunkaras is practicing lucid dreaming. That's the first spiritual practice you might wish to resolve to do. And what lucid dreaming means is, being awake within a dream and being able to consciously interact in the real world. Things feel very vibrantly alive. And, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's more real, it's just more intense. A good way to do it, if you have, like a Netflix or access to DVDs or streaming, if you look for a movie called Waking Life, and it's directed by Richard Linklater, who's currently up for award after award for his movie Boyhood, which we'll talk about at some point. But Waking Life is this animated, real lucid dreaming experience, and it's a terrific film to really explore that aspect, that practice. The benefits of lucid dreaming, well, in this article, he's saying that it reminds him how much life is like a dream, and its impermanence, and how, what does he say here? Oh, I don't have to be a victim to my surroundings and can instead become lucid and take control. So the suggestion on how to actually experience lucid dreaming is to repeat the phrase in your head, I'm going to remember to recognize that I'm dreaming. And if you do this all day, especially as you're laying in bed, and you just have the awareness that you're going to have a lucid dream, then that can help. There's some other ways that you could possibly do that. You can, start a dream diary and record your dreams if you remember them. Reality checks. In other words, looking at yourself in the mirror, looking at, the surroundings around you. Manifest. Spending up to 20 minutes in the afternoon to incubate a lucid dream. The techniques to use here are meditation, self-hypnosis, and visualization of what you wish to experience in your dream. Imagine your desired dream. If you wake up at night, research apparently has shown that waking up during sleep can increase one's chance of being lucid. Direct your half-asleep state. You know, that state where you're kind of, not fully asleep, but you're not fully awake either. So there's some things that you can do if you're interested in exploring lucid dreaming. Another, of course, resolution you may have is to engage in meditation. If you've tried to do that already and found you had some troubles doing it, one of the best ways that I always talk about this on the show. Haven't done one in a bit, but breathing, focusing on the breathing is probably the best way to get into a meditative state. And there's continued research that shows that this meditation is helpful to your physical health, lowering blood pressure, improving digestion, reducing stress, reducing stroke and cardiovascular disease, setting free your creativity, all of these things. The benefits of meditation are truly worth it. And then the third one he has here is spend time in nature. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory. Going for a nature walk is an amazing way to de-stress and refocus. And then finally, read more. Reading is becoming often is becoming a skill that we can read, but reading books as opposed to watching TV or going to the movies or even watching things online. It seems to be something that we often miss out on, and it's an amazing experience. So the books don't necessarily have to be spiritual books, but reading spiritual books are always engaging and can always bring more perspective to your life. So, those are the 4 that you might wish to make a resolution about. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and I realize we're going to run out of time before I finished on this one as well, but I think it's a really important article to talk about in the context of this show. Because I am always talking about the difference between spirituality and religion, and how the two are not interchangeable as they are often used, and not only not interchangeable, they are often diametrically opposed to each other. So this article is 10 reasons why you should never have a religion, and now, this is written by a man named Steve Pavlina. Now, his opinions aren't entirely mine, but I do agree with a lot of what he has to say. He uses some rather condemning words for people, but he gets the point across, and there's a lot of truth to it. So I'll started a little bit. We'll get more into it probably next week. So when consciously pursuing your spiritual development is commendable, joining an established religion such as Christianity, Islam, or Hinduism may be one of the worst ways to go about it. And so he shares 10 reasons why you need to abandon the baggage of organized religion in order to pursue your spirituality, or as he calls it, conscious living. So the first one is, he says, is spirituality for dummies. And again, I'm not so crazy about the rather insulting language he uses, but as I say, there's truth here. So he says if you have the awareness level of a snail and your thinking is mired in shame and guilt, then subscribing to a religion can help you climb to a higher level of awareness. Well, it's true that organized religion can actually raise you up from a very low level of awareness. But, as he says, your mindset, however, still remains incredibly dysfunctional, and you've merely swapped one form of erroneous thinking for another. What he says is for people who are, reasonably intelligent and don't have major self-esteem issues, he says that religion is ridiculously consciousness-lowering. While some religious beliefs can be empowering, he says, on the whole, the decision to formally participate in a religion will merely burden your mind with a hefty load of false notions. When you subscribe to a religion, he says, you substitute nebulous groupthink for focused, independent thought. Instead of learning to discern truth on your own, you're told what to believe. And this doesn't accelerate your spiritual growth. On the contrary, it puts the brakes on your continued conscious development. Religion is the off switch of the human mind. And I agree with that. You do tend to, even the most progressive of religions and churches that I've been to, it always seems to end up in that realm of sort of group think. And doesn't allow for, or reduces the time that you have to use your own intellect for your spiritual growth, and your own intuition for your spiritual growth. And as I've said many times, people often join religions because their spirituality is so powerful and confusing to them and scary that they would much rather have someone or some group or organization that sort of has all the answers and takes control of that, so they don't have to think about it. That's number one in his list of things, and so we don't have time for all 10, but we'll get back to this article. In the meantime, I'm afraid I have to wrap up the show, but keep your consciousness as high as you can. Remember, we are the two that are ultimately one. Have a great week.